Please welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. Wendy Pose are going to discuss a fascinating story today. I hope you find some time to unwind after reading this story. Remember to subscribe, like, and comment to help our channel. Let us move on to the story. Underpass primary topic. Mr. Hung and Dapa's family Underpass contemporary 3-story home is located in a tiny alley. Even though the sound of an old motorcycle can still be heard in the distance, it is quiet. However, the cozy ambience of the family dinner is still present inside the house. Their underpass smoke rising from the sour fish soup. It has a strong scent that combines with the aroma of salt and pepper boiled chicken. Everyone wants to eat because of it. Mr. Hung is seated at the table with 2 wooden chopsticks in his hands. He says, "Enjoy your meal," as he hastily places a large piece of chicken in his wife Underpass bowl. "To make your father proud of you, eat a lot." The unexpected remarks made by Mr. Hung cause the room to sag. Nuyet, his wife, smiles instantly despite appearing somewhat taken aback. Her eyes seem to be searching for pity. "Yes, Dad, thank you. Wendy Pose are making plans. It might be too busy. My child is Nandapost on my mind." Nuyet is seated next to his husband, Van. He does Nandapost seem to listen to what his wife has to say. He only looks at the bowl of rice. Unconsciously, the chopsticks grasp the food. Warm yellow light streams down from the house and Dapa's ceiling. It is obvious that he is worn out from a demanding workday. Nuyet nods and carefully adds a vegetable piece to the bowl. No more words, silence. Mr. Hung and Dapa's wife, Mrs. Lone, is seated across from her son. Her gaze flickers back and forth between her eyes. He doesn't Nandapost say anything, but his voice is a little harsh. He's concerned about his son. "I haven't Nandapost inquired about his recent whereabouts. I haven't Nandapost done anything, I see." Mr. Hung brushes his grey hair and smiles. But he refuses to listen to his husband Underpass' explanation. To make them anxious, Mrs. Lone keeps talking about her son. "Don't Nandapost be upset. You go to work all day, and when I get home, we discuss various topics. They are still quite young. They are not able to do it continuously." The rice bowl Underpass air gets murky. Their Underpass the reverberation of a chopstick. This year, Mr. Hung turns 60 years old, 2 years older than Mrs. Lone, and with grey hair. He oversees a sizable bank branch as its director. He Underpass nearly done with his work. In a few months, he will be retiring. He is deeply ingrained with the habit of handling everything. As a result, even though his children are now adults, he occasionally still meddles in their personal lives. Van, his son, does Nandapost hang out with his dad. Mr. Hung and Mr. Hung prefer to pursue their own careers rather than work in a bank setting. Establishing a foreign business with high standards. Outside, it began to rain heavily. The roof was hit by every drop of rain. Van is still unable to move. He keeps his gaze fixed on the dining table. He doesn't Nandapost have much time for his family because of his busy job. However, he harbors a deep affection for his wife. Van always tries to make up for Nuyet with substance, with silent care. Even though words can Nandapost express how much he feels, Nuyet appears content as she sits next to her husband. However, her eyes brighten as she considers the future with a hint of melancholy. Regarding herself, her age is 28. Similar to her name, she is educated. Her parents come from a well-off background. Quang Ninh is where they reside. She received an invitation to teach at a well-known middle school in Hanoi after graduating from college. Therefore, she couldn't pass up this unique chance. She chose to launch a business in Ha Than, Phuan Ho, Nuon Nip, away from her parents' Ondopos family. She is a shy girl who is kind and gentle. No one can match Nuyet in terms of beauty and dignity. From grade 3 to the university entrance exam to teaching in a school, everyone adores Nuyet, including friends, co-workers, and students. Nuyet is taller than 1m65, has long, straight legs that are as attractive as they are depicted, a body similar to the story Andapos protagonist, and a slim waist in addition to her good character. Because of this, Nuyet is well liked by many, and is the aspiration of many men of all ages. Few people have the ability to fluster her before taking Van, since they all intend to leave her when they have an Andapos eaten yet. The other members of the group are unable to stay with her for longer than a week, even though they are aware that she still lacks the strength to bear it. Some people are afraid to climb high. The only two people who can bring two people together by going to a company exhibition are Van, a 2-year-old boy, and Nuyet, a 25-year-old girl. Nuyet was 25 years old that year. Nuyet was drawn to Van not because she was attractive, as Van was not, but rather because she was passionate about her work. When Nuyet heard Van discussing her companion Andapos technology, she had been staring at him for a while. However, Ngaitandapa's patience and enthusiasm for her work what make her appealing. Naturally, Van finds Ngaitandapa's attractive face and sexy body attractive as well. It was by chance that they met one another. Despite the fact that they did Andapos spend much time together, they were both very happy and deeply in love. The way Van used her time for work was drawing Ngaitandapa's attention more and more. It was a Manondapa's rare beauty. In Ngaitandapa's opinion, Nuyet was not depressed, but he was unaware of it. Van and Nuyet did that for the first time after the company night. Ngaitandapa's most valuable possession was taken by Van. Their love for one another grew stronger as a result. Van is a really peculiar individual. He wouldn't be so mistaken if Ngaitandapa's body were as lovely as his painting. However, no, even after that, Nuyet continued to be more drawn to his work than his lover. For the first time, Nang felt that about Nuyet. Unlike what Nangandapa's close friend claimed, Nang felt fairly normal. Nang gave herself to her lover at that time out of love. Nang had no regrets. Nuyet married Van 2 years after they fell in love. Both families were overjoyed. At home, Nuyet was regarded as a treasure trove. Ngaitandapa's parents loved her unconditionally and treated her like a treasure in the family. Nuyet and Nang received a house as a gift from Hong on loan. Nang received a brand new car from Ngaitandapa's family. The year following their marriage, everything was flawless and stunning. There was only one thing lacking. There was no indication that Nang and Van had broken up a year prior. It was a frequent topic of conversation between the two families, particularly between Hong and Lone. Nuyet was unsure of how to respond. Nang held herself responsible for her lack of excellence. Nang experienced pressure and a sense of obligation to support her parents. To have a mischievous child was a testament to Nangandapa's beauty. Nuyet and Nang occasionally went shopping together. Nuyet frequently spent a lot of time browsing a jewelry store. Nangandapa's childlike demeanor was endearing, and she always had a lovely smile when she saw a small shirt or a lovely headband. Van Nangandapa's sensitive enough, though. She was unaware of her wife Nangandapa's strong desire to become a mother. It was Nangandapa's that Van did Nangandapa's comprehend, though. Van was aware of his wife Nangandapa's deep sadness. Van knew that he, not Nuyet, was the one who made this error, so he avoided seeing his wife in that state every time. Nuyet became infertile as a result of Van concealing her from the physician. Van grew increasingly fond of Nuyet after that. Van gave Ngaitandapa's future a lot of thought, but he chose to take him away because he loved Nang too much. There is still a lot of water left, and Ngaitandapa's technology has advanced, but lately, Van felt under pressure from her parents, who were constantly talking about their kids. A year of marriage is nothing, Ngaitandapa's true. The elders were extremely concerned as well. Van simply did her job of resisting, knowing that. I asked my folks to join me for dinner. The plate was placed on the table by Nuyet. Today was a holiday after everyone had finished their meal. Van and Nuyet stopped by my parents' Ondopo's house for dinner. Each week, because the two husbands and Apo's apartments were close to their homes, Mrs. Lone and Mr. Hong prepared noodles. Yes, thank you, Dad. Leave that bowl alone. But what does the mother-in-law have to do with whose daughter-in-law she's not a visitor? Once, Mrs. Lone fell into Ingite and Dapper's womb, falling in love, once more. Knew yet Chuck was depressed. Or did your mother-in-law and you stand in the center of the bowl and chat and laugh until it was all over? Hello, Mr. Hung. You arrived home so late yesterday. Why? Mrs. Lone inquired. Yes, last night I had to go to the airport to pick up my partner. I was intoxicated. Yon deposal let some of my co-workers take me the next time. What was the director underpass action done on the post? Blame me the next time you arrive home late. Mrs. Lone did Nanderpost mince words. My father and I were being serious. This could be a significant partner. What if my dad simply exited the airport? My mother-in-law grinned as she stood beside me. Yes, son, this man, he Anderpost really attractive. He might be flirting with some women, Mrs. Lone said. In front of the daughter-in-law. Why did she say that Dun Underpost pay attention to her? There Underpass anger in Mr. Hung and Dapper's voice. He Underpass content, though, because the daughter-in-law spoke for him. The girl is really sensitive. I Tanderpass all right. Observe your parents Ondopose happiness. Nobody is allowed to speak to your parents. Your father-in-law loves you very much. He does a lot of things for you. At least, nobody is able to help you, Mrs. Lone said. You defeated me. I promised to come home early the next time. Mr. Hung fled to the living room in a fit of rage. Wiping away his perspiration, he reflected on the previous evening. I gave him thanks last night. This is how he brought me home. As a girl, sitting next to Mr. Hung and Dapper's chair, the age of my daughter. Following the wedding, everybody went home. Every child was waiting for something, like a friend. Mr. Hung looked at Nung, the small bird. She recently started working at his bank. She waited to be picked up by her husband. However, he accompanied his friend. Fortunately, I was present. I noticed Mr. Hung grinning. Even so, his daughter-in-law Wonderpass face is more attractive than his own. Nhung and Dapper's skin tone is fair. You have a husband, I see. What is your age this year? Mr. Hung inquired. Nung glanced around while driving. Uncle, Yondeposen 28. Oh, I mistook you for the person who had read my file. Nung gave Mr. Hung a startled look. All I read were the files of a few attractive friends. Mr. Hung purposefully revealed his character. Nung gave Mr. Hung and Dapper's hand a small slap. Just furious. Yondeposen not pretty. Really? Only learned for 2 weeks. Nung, however, demonstrated her closeness to Mr. Hung. Mr. Hung shares a lot of Pieplin Dapper's age at the bank. However, he only permits the staff to address him as uncle. It will have a minor effect, because he detests being perceived as elderly. Oh, Yondeposen joking. Yondeposen really attractive. After saying that, Mr. Hung brought the car to a stop. So I did what I did before heading to the bank, Mr. Hung asked in embarrassment. A director Randerposs experience eliminates any doubts for his employees. Yes, I am employed at a Tallinn bank. However, the director there dos Nanderpost like it. Why dos Nanderpost it fit me? I wondered. Mr. Hung wanted to know. I also just mentioned that uncle of mine who was about my age. That uncle is really attractive. Nhung and Dapper's tone was sarcastic. God, oh God. The Tandepass, what happened? However, he's that age as well. Mr. Hung moved ahead of me. That escaped my notice. I observed him being kind. Everyone is easy to get along with. Mr. Hung was commended by Nung. You Undipose are good at speaking and eating. I do have a phone, actually. The phone was picked up by Nung. Mr. Hung seized the chance to wink. Release him. I don't Undipose give a damn. Nung hung up and hung up the telephone. What and Dapper's the matter with you, my husband? Indeed. What and Dapper's the matter? Have you brought me safely home? I Tanderpass all right, uncle. Wendy Poser apart, just looked out the door, Nung said. Therefore, neither your husband nor I are brave enough to take part. I don't underpost get along with that person, though, uncle. There are numerous approaches to handling it. To make each other happy, I tend to pass best to make decisions together. You get it, Mr. Hung gave me consolation. Perhaps those words are common, however. It differs from ordinary people when it comes from a director. This facilitates Hung and Dapper's comforting process. What is the number of people he loves? He has a lot of love. It feels like a heavy burden to leave me. What makes it such a burden, I mean? The new DM fuck must be someone as gorgeous as me. Uncle Hung noticed Nung talking quietly. What and Dapper's the matter with you? We'll visit your home. I just sent my mother a text, tonight. The Ondipos'll spend the night at your house. Nung grinned as she glanced at Mr. Hung. Because I heard a lot about you before I came to work. I have no idea what you desire. What location is your friend and Dapper's home? Mr. Hung thought Nung was up to something else. Uncle actually just showed me around in this manner, all through the night. Nung spoke without glancing at Mr. Hung and turned his face out the door. Mr. Hung remained quiet and said nothing. He was aware that this child had a personal agenda. Perhaps he hopes to become well known here. If so, I tend to pass no different from other typical girls. However, failing to suck is a sin if you open your mouth. All right. Additionally, tomorrow is a day off. Do you feel hungry? Mr. Hung said, slowly glancing at Nung. Do you feel hungry? I simply feel worn out. Nung shut his eyes. The fish was in the net. As Mr. Hung could see, he grinned. He took pride in his position at the bank. He is a gifted and decisive individual. But even though everyone is aware of Mr. Hung, nobody is brave enough to speak even a single word. Due to Mr. Hung and Dapper's salary, they are paid nearly twice as much as other banks. Despite only being a branch manager, he holds a talented position. However, every suggestion made by Mr. Hung to the Companyandapas leader is accepted. The Tandapas, another one of his advantages, so that he can cover the sky with a kiss and call the wind. Their Andapas no need to know how many horns Mr. Hung bit Mrs. Lone, or uncle took me a few more rounds, he said abruptly. Eondipas am friends with a hotel. Take me to sleep there, rest today. I also drink a lot. Mr. Hung made the proposal without hesitation. Because he had calculated everything based on his experience. Nung remained silent. The green light signal is that. Mr. Hung stopped driving around and drove the car directly to the hotel. By international standards, that hotel has 5 stars. Mr. Hung handed Nung a key and drove down the tunnel. Where was the room you rented? Perhaps he reserved a room ahead of time. Mr. Hung said, this is the hotel where my friend stays. I never have keys. This is the key he had previously rented. Mr. Hung said with a smile. Many of the girls in this room have visited that room. Yes, yes, yes. Nung opened the car door slowly. I went to sleep. Uncle arrived here. Nung gave Mr. Hung a wide-eyed stare. I was at a loss for words. The fact that Mr. Hung did not wait in the same room just caught me off guard. I only took a few steps to the elevator. Nung. Then I heard him being called to by Mr. Hung. I believed I knew immediately, she scowled. As she turned around, she noticed Mr. Hung standing directly beside the toilet. Nung was more depressed. How could I allow Mr. Nung to use the restroom? I wondered. Run to the fat belly, Mr. Hung said, and look at him a little lower than Nung because Nung is urinating. The Manandapas office is that. Nung simply grinned and pondered. Mr. Hung and Nang went into the elevator together. Mr. Hung dragged Nung straight into the bathroom. As soon as he entered the room, he eventually heard the sound of running water as the infant was bathed. Mr. Hung grinned. He must have caught the baby if he took the initiative in this way. You have an Andapost returned, yet Nung removed a tight shirt and asked in a heartfelt manner. The baby has already peed. If you don't Andapost have time to use the restroom, Mr. Hung chuckled. The infant forgot. That amusing grin persisted for a long time. He hurried over to give Nung a hug. Everything happened on its own after that. Nung believed so. But Nang was unaware that he initiated the game. In reality, Nang merely wished to gain Mr. Hung and Dapper's trust by making light of him. Nang felt like he had put his head in the basket, because I did not anticipate everything to go this way. Nang became extremely alarmed when Mr. Hung abruptly got to his feet and raised his gaze. In order to avoid this, Nang bowed. No one was to know about the baby. The infant fell asleep. After saying that, Mr. Hung tidied up the man on Dapper's clothes and led him to the restroom before leaving. Nang took a deep breath. Nang was unsure if this was the start of his advantages. Nang greeted Mr. Hung the following morning. "Hi, uncle. Indeed. You arrive at work quite early. Indeed. Hi there." Mr. Hung did not know how many times he stayed in the office, going from the garage. But everyone liked him, because he was a friendly person. "Hi, uncle." Nung was standing in the customer service section. Mr. Hung brought home the girl from Saturday. Nang felt ashamed when Mr. Hung turned away from her and grinned. He gave the girl a wink. Nang looks stunning in her bank uniform today. "Hi, sir." Eondeposum heading to the office. Later, Eondepos will give you a call. When Mr. Hung turned around, he saw that Nung was staring at himself while listening to the phone. Nung instantly turned away and switched off the phone when he saw Mr. Hung and Dapper's eyes. Mr. Hung simply went and reflected, telling himself quite plainly that day that he and his husband had separated and then gotten married. This girl is Nandapos faithful. He placed the chair in front of the director and sat in the office, thinking. Mr. Hung became irate as he recalled the 7th day in the hotel. His thoughts were racing with the picture of his daughter-in-law. Every time his son and daughter-in-law have visited the place since that day, it seems as though Nung remembered something in the middle of the week. He recalled the distant child, a young worker, who also served as a source of his happiness and a stress reliever. He grabbed the phone and made a long-distance call. They started working as soon as the door opened. It was unexpected. "Where did you get it?" Nung neglected to knock on the door while carrying a stack of papers. God, oh God. Nobody can avoid a half-word when 6 eyes are on each other. 5 days have passed since his daughter-in-law caught Mr. Hung flirting with a distant child. Mr. Hung gave this problem a lot of thought. Even though there was nothing natural, Hung and Dapper's daughter-in-law joined him at the hotel that evening with ease, simple but not simple. Mr. Hung was furious because she did Nandapos know what she was trying to do. The exposed story about him and the distant child was deemed to be over. His wife held all the power. After a few days, Nung was constantly avoiding Mr. Hung. She had no idea what he had discussed with others. As she continued to think, Mr. Hung and Dapper's anxiety increased because he was a bad person. For the first time, he ventured to accompany him to the hotel. This child probably wouldn't Dapist be scared, and wouldn't Dapist understand how to show me respect. She was calling me, and I heard it. That jerk, now go home, Mrs. Lonan Dapist's voice is that. I heard it. Something negative was on the horizon. I went to cook. I did Nandapos make a mistake. Now go home. Mrs. Lone ended the call. Mr. Hung and Dapper's concern did not return so quickly. It must have happened. Mr. Hung got up right away and walked down the stairs looking concerned. He came up with numerous excuses to shield him from a distant child on the way home. They have been married for over 15 years, after all. He still had something to say. At least, everything was prepared. Mr. Hung entered the house with assurance. Eondeposum not done writing yet. Mrs. Lone. He shivered as a bag of clothes flew over his face and lay outside the yard. Mrs. Lone, Mr. Quark D, had tears in her eyes. What did you do? I was just told to go home by you. You Eondepos are pursuing me now. Mr. Hung hurried outside, grabbed the clothing, carried it home, shut the local store, and observed. Looking at him, he was only a cub at home, but at the bank he could be a tiger or a lion. Mr. Hung arrived home just now. Mrs. Lone hurled a black USB stick and a stack of pictures at him. Mr. Hung picked up the picture and examined it. Ignoring the fact that there was no more blood, he had his eyes open. The picture of him with the skin is not this one. naturally, because the baby wore nandopos there at the time. But when he looked closely, he saw that all of his pictures were on the Karandapas side, followed by those in the hotel hallway. Every angle was in opposition to the lens. Undoubtedly, it was a baby. It had prior intentions. It had also invented a voice to attract his attention. Mr. Hung had a blood-red face. He got to his feet. He did Nandapos know how to handle this baby, because he was so furious. He could not have predicted its behavior. Who could have thought, however, Itandapas crucial. We must now confront this tiger. He was elderly. Yuandapos played the cat and chicken game, behind my back a lot, Mr. Hung, and the infant was the same age as your buffalo, 28 years old. Her voice was hoarse as she spoke. She had experienced the pain of culture on a few occasions in the past. But because he made many promises, she was able to forgive him, I explained. And she listened. It was too inebriated at the time, so I simply took it to the hotel to sleep. Mr. Hung was then intoxicated. He was going to explain that the baby did Nandapos work. This was something he could avoid. I still believed him, he thought. He fled. He fled from my home. His face was the last thing I wanted to see. Pointing to him, she blinked her eyes. She was not someone Mr. Hung wanted to deal with. Yes, I did Nandapos want that, if she was a typical woman. She believed she was assuming a married woman and Apis responsibilities. Mr. Hung exchanged glances while speaking in an agonized tone. Like you, but still requesting a knife. Like me, Mr. Hung. This house is the result of Samioni Handapos actions. Don't Nandapos you enjoy telling me. Would you still be here today if my father had Nandapos helped you enter the bank and ascend to the top? Mr. Hung had red eyes. She struck him as the kind. Which kind? Her eyes blinked. She was the kind of woman who was sensitive. I wouldn't Apis be this way now if she had Nandapos left me for over 15 years. Mr. Hung gave Mrs. Lone a look. Mrs. Lone couldn't Apis speak. Her gaze remained fixed on him, but she was unable to speak. Have you let me touch you since I gave birth to Than Van, who could take it? I asked. I have Nandapos been with you for a long time. Not because I thank Than Van and Apos grandfather. He hurried out of the house. Mrs. Lone had red eyes. It was also disliked by Mr. Hung. He shut the wooden door behind him and left the house immediately. Mr. Hung strolled, took a seat in a chair outside the park, and reflected. With his wife fighting all day, Mr. Hung was extremely bored. His wife Indipas's sensitive illness was the only thing that caused strife in his family. Mrs. Lone forbade Than Van from touching people. Ever since I gave birth to him, he no longer enjoyed it, no matter how hard he tried. Mr. Hung was born intending to have a boyfriend, but he became increasingly bored. God, oh God, Mr. Hung, catch me, get me, God, oh God, my grandchild runs too quickly. I am unable to capture him. My grandson is a slow runner. I am unable to capture him. Mr. Hung was a young boy playing in the light with his grandparents in front of him. The anger would quickly subside if he had a grandson as well. Compared to when she had a grandson, his wife would undoubtedly be more distressed. Mr. Hung recalled Nuyet and Than Van. Neither of these had ever borne a child. Perhaps there was a problem with one of them. Mr. Hung got up and left the park, and giving it some thought, Van opened the door at his father and Apis. He was shocked to see Mr. Hung outside. Van glanced at his father and lifted his hand to check the clock. The time was 9:30 p.m. however. This is how his father arrived home. Something has to be there. Can you give him a night and Apis sleep? Mr. Hung simply said. Eondipos I'm tired, and removed his shoes. Dad, come in, Van. Pour your father some water. Nuyet. Indeed. Nuyet emerged from the restroom. Hi, Dad. Nuyet went outside. He appears to have just taken a bath. He had thick hair. He had a lovely smile on his face. Nuyet was dressed in white pajamas. The chair was occupied by Mr. Hung. He clasped his hands between his legs. His eyes were now bright and cheerful instead of sad, as they had been. He occasionally did some strange things. He disturbed the kids tonight, Mom and Dad just got into a fight. Haha, Mr. Hung gave Van a nod. Occasionally, he glanced into the kitchen, observing Mrs. Kondowandapa's long legs and her white, smooth eyes. Dad, I tanda pass nothing. Simply take a nap here. There are 2 more bedrooms left. Van indicated to unoccupied rooms. The 40th floor is where Van and Engaitan Dapa's apartment is located. There are 65 floors in this apartment. The more expensive it is, the less expensive it is. With 3 bedrooms, a living room that is connected to the kitchen, and a reasonably large toilet, the apartment is roomy. The dining table is next to the kitchen. Things can be hung from the railing outside. Ha ha, thanks, Dad. Then Mom said something to Dad. Van asked gravely. It is nanda post anything, son, I tanda pass only a few days. Mom and Dad were constantly fighting. Dad and Mom were like kids. At that age, they were constantly fighting. Nuyet and I are going to visit Mom tomorrow. Mom is by herself at home. Iondiposum also concerned. Indeed, you to come talk to Mom tomorrow to help her feel less depressed. Nuyet brought a cup of water and a plate of fruit. He placed it before Mr. Hung on the table. I offered Dad some orange juice and water. Nuyet took a seat to speak with Dad. After that, she made Dad a bed. He needed to do some work. He needed to complete a notebook. Dad took a seat to talk. Too many things needed to be done. Van gave a nod. With a smile, to enter the couple in Dapa's bedroom. Nuyet and Mr. Hung were the only people in the living room at the moment. When will they both give birth to Dodondapor's child? Then to eliminate this awkward situation, Mr. Hung simply ate an orange and spoke. Before Van could come up with anything to say, he abruptly went to the bedroom to get the 2 fathers to stop talking. Although I don't on the post currently have a child, I would really love to have one. Nuyet spoke plainly, without hesitation. She had no idea where the issue lay. Have you already visited the doctor? Mr. Hung simply spoke while examining Engaitan Dapa's face. He noticed the baby was gone. He used the occasion to speak. Not just yet, father. Every day, Mr. Van is also occupied. As a result, we have been unable to set up the time. We need to set it up, but I tanda pass hectic. I tanda pass also the first 30 years this year. Yes, I will instruct him to make the arrangements. Iondipos'll get the bed ready for Dad. Grinning, Nuyet rose in a room across from the 2 husband Sandapo's bedrooms. Iondipos we made the bed for you. Dad, good night. To my room, Iondiposum going. Nuyet simply said, grinned, and hurried to his room. Mr. Hung grinned at his daughter-in-law Wandapa's kindness. The fleeting moment was just over, when Mr. Hung opened his eyes at midnight. The noise and his wife Indapa's sobbing made it difficult for him to fall asleep. It was completely dark in the room when Mr. Hung crept out. Only the electric lamp Andapos red light and the small amount of light from other parts of the balcony were visible. It was silent. Van and Nuyet might have gone to bed. Mr. Hung let the wind in by opening the balcony door. A refreshing wind entered the space. The noise beneath the street was just heard by Mr. Hung. There was still a lot of traffic. The capital was a busy place. The capital was never asleep. Mr. Hung could still hear the singing of a group of young men sitting in a row on this high floor. When he looked down, they occasionally sang through the night. It couldn't Ndapus be stopped. Mr. Hung and Ndapus' tongue snapped. He was very young. He went inside after turning around. The following day, Mr. Hung got up early. Van and Nuyet visited his home today in order to speak with his wife. Mr. Hung knew the outcome, so he did Nandapos care. He changed, drove home, and proceeded to the bank. He believed that no one had ever greeted him silently until today. As though he had just entered the office, his face was icy. He dialed his nephew. Outside the window was Nung. Here sat his nephew. He was unable to smile because of his shyness. He gestured toward the office sofa. He was unsure of where to begin. He needed to exercise extreme caution around this girl now. There was no way to discipline her. but he couldn't get rid of her. Even though Mr. Hung was furious, he had to accept it and act as composed as possible. Nung took a seat. She was aware of the reason Mr. Hung wanted to call. She was anxious and concerned even though she was aware of the material beforehand. The room had a very tense atmosphere. We had to get to work because Mr. Hung was so busy. "What are you looking for from me?" Mr. Hung stated. He pressed his hands to his knees. He had a frown on his face. Nung listened to the end and remained quiet for some time. He had his face down. He clasped his two fingers together. "I'll give you two instructions. You have done a lot for your family, but I'm not sure what you mean by that. In other words, I want this to be on the news first and foremost. I'm in court with you. This is your age. As soon as we leave the courtroom, you can return home. However, Nung, you are aware of who is the most unfavorable. The second is that I anticipate this and everything else the following day. I'll think about offering you a more senior role. I'll give you twice your salary. What are your thoughts indeed?" Nung remained quiet. All she said was a lie, as though she was trying to figure out how to handle it. Her eyes were rolling back and forth. When Mr. Hung said that, Nung was unsure of how to react. She feared that she would be the true guilty party if Mr. Hung appeared and threw everything away. However, if Mr. Hung continued to give her away, it indicated that he still wanted to keep her chair for a while. As a result, he did not deal with her fully and saw the situation clearly. Nung couldn't act foolishly again. Afterward, she got up and left. Mr. Hung continued to roll his eyes back and forth. Mr. Hung and Nung have just signed a contract, and they are staring at the girl. They both benefit from this contract. Mr. Hung reasoned that this girl would be typical if it were that easy. It was the same as when the girls used to call and chat with him every day. However, Nung, the girl, took the quickest route, which no one else dared to take. She succeeded in her mission. Mr. Hung grinned and pondered. He would show her what it was like to fall high and low. Is that were the case? Mr. Hung went back to Van and Engiten Dapper's main apartment in the afternoon. He saw the two of them watching TV in the chair when he first arrived home. The dad said hello to the dad. To eat the cucumber, the father entered. Grinning, New Yet extended an invitation to the father-in-law. The kids then proceeded to our home. Mr. Hung sat down, drew a black face, white hair, and yellow teeth due to smoking, and put a piece of cucumber in his mouth. He nibbled on the cucumber slice. The chubby belly became a shirt with a rib bump. As they went by, the kids noticed the mother chatting with the neighbors. However, father, the mother wasn't depressed at all, Van said. Yes, but... As he turned to face Mr. Hung, New Yet glanced at Van and nodded. But, son, what'n dapper's the matter, father? I tandapass all right. The mother hasn't forgiven you yet. The tandapass all. The children were given the father randapa's clothing by the mother, Van said. Looking around the room, Mr. Hung then got up and entered the room. In the room, he noticed a pair of athletic and work shoes. A wardrobe was also present. Mr. Hung was aware that his clothing had been stored there. Father, don't be depressed. The mother will probably sit outside for a while. Your two gorgeous eyebrows look the same, New Yet remarked as she stood behind Mr. Hung. Therefore, the father will rent a house on his own. The father will follow her after the kids have made up their minds. Mr. Hung looked at New Yet as he spoke. He appeared somewhat beneath New Yet. Although it appeared that he said so, his true intention was to keep him here. In addition, he was fed up with his elderly wife Indapa's constant nagging. It always feels younger and more fresh to live with kids. Hey, the kids have to get their dad a wardrobe. This is where the father resides. The mother returns home when she is upset. Why must you treat us with such rudeness? Mr. Hung remained silent. New Yet said as he got up. He simply sat down on the couch, feigned sadness, and gazed out onto the balcony. I implore you, father, the mother will reprimand us if you leave. Yes, the tandapa's fine. Nu Yet said, taking a seat in the chair beside Mr. Hung. The kids have been bothered by you for a long time. Mr. Hung returned with a dejected expression, but he was actually absolutely correct. Yes, and Engite and Dapper Size seemed to want to tell Van this story as she looked at Nu Yet. Van entered the room immediately after noticing that. His brows went up. The following story seemed to make Van very uneasy. Son, what and Dapper's wrong? Looking at Nu Yet, Mr. Hung turned. Given that Van never wants to bring up this issue, Mr. Hung surmised that it was partially a kid and a horse tale, or observing him in that manner. Mr. Hung also made numerous observations, for a variety of reasons, and at work, Van became uninterested whenever he brought it up. Mr. Hung also made numerous observations, for a variety of reasons, and at work, Van became uninterested whenever he brought it up. Mr. Hung also made numerous observations. Why don't on the post you accuse us, Van, of not bearing you a child? Nu Yet licked his lips and said, Mr. Hung, you were sorely missed by this woman. Mr. Hung looked over at Nu Yet. Nu Yet sat down to play with Dad. The gym is where yonder possum heading. After saying hello to Dad outside, Van left the house. Mr. Hung was aware of his avoidance of the children Dapper's tale. You leave early for home. Yonder possum cooking that seafood tonight. After telling Van, Nu Yet returned to watch television. Van spoke, shut the door, and headed straight. Nu Yet and Mr. Hung were the only people left in the house. I do pour Dad some water. Nu Yet, Mr. Hung felt more at ease than uneasy when he saw Van leave the house. Yes, yes, yes. Nu Yet got up to get water from the refrigerator without giving it any thought. Dad considers you his daughter, so allow me to ask you a question. Nu Yet, yes, yes. Dad, just ask, Mr. Hung said with a kind smile. After giving Mr. Hung a quick glance, Nu Yet turned to watch TV. It was a minor issue, too. Dad also wanted to know why we had such a lengthy planning process. Indeed, Nu Yet was so excited that she turned her attention from the TV to the table. You don't on the post have to say it, though, if I tend to pass a private matter. Mr. Hung was opposed to coercion, because his daughter-in-law could not ask or force it under any circumstances. I tend to pass nothing, Dad. There is no plan, but we remain normal. Because she also longed to have a child, Nu Yet was upset. Van then prohibited Nu Yet from sharing this story, so it was never told to anyone. However, Nu Yet noticed that there was no issue when discussing this with the people in the house today, because he is Van and Apar's father. So, have the kids been checked out yet? Not just yet. Due to his busy schedule, Mr. Van spoke slowly. This year, Nu Yet turns 28. Nu Yet was excited whenever he brought up Nu Yet, because all of his friends had kids at this age. Why is this guy so slow this time and pay attention, Dad? Van does Nandapost go to the exam, he goes alone. This issue must be his fault if it is Nandapost yours. Yes, my friend is employed in that division as well. When are you going to drive me home? Mr. Van is not going to concur. When Nu Yet asked her father-in-law about it, she felt ashamed. She feels like she has an ally now, though. This will remain a secret from her father-in-law. I tend to pass a different matter entirely if I tend to pass her parents or mother-in-law. Her in-laws will accuse her of not understanding the importance of having a broad perspective like Mr. Hung and Dapper's. Mr. Hung had trouble falling asleep that night. He reflected on his talk with Nu Yet this afternoon. Was it excessive? He believed that his dignity as a father had diminished somewhat. Where can the words go, though? I have no idea what the child thinks. He would be much more challenging, he told Van. He crept out of the guest room slowly. The only light in the darkness came from the balcony, and the earthen lamp and Apar's little red light. He slipped off. A roar. Mr. Hung shivered as the door opened. He pivoted. Oh, father, you still have an Nandapost slept. Nu Yet noticed his father-in-law shivering when he opened the door. Dad went to fetch water. You still have an Nandapost slept. I went to get water, too, Van. Why did Nandapo's juice switch on the electricity? It walked to the refrigerator through Mr. Hung and Dapa's body. What he was thinking was beyond his comprehension. However, he remained motionless for some time. His mouth continued to water, because new yet did Nandapos pay attention to his attire. Since he arrived at their home, he thought his father was perplexed. He was a father-in-law, but he was a man, too. But his attire was too contemporary. Was it intentional on his part indeed? Dad was worried about the kids not turning on the light. My daughter was instructed to let Van sleep by him. Mr. Hung switched on the electricity and opened the door. Dad, Van slept. He slept well. Nu Yet drank water after opening the door. Nu Yet was correct. Mr. Hung had great intelligence. He slept soundly when he did. He did Nandapos put in a lot of effort at work. Van wouldn't Dapos wake up in the event of an earthquake? I believe so. Mr. Hung was a bit more relaxed. Oh, father, dad. Nu Yet made two calls to Mr. Hung. Indeed, father. Mr. Hung was momentarily perplexed. His attention was diverted by the daughter-in-law Wandapal's voice. What was Dad thinking about being so intent? Nu Yet noticed Mr. Hung looking perplexed. Nang grinned. Oh, father. Dad believed Van did nothing but eat and sleep. When will the children have children if you arrive at work in this manner all of a sudden? He was depressed. Nu Yet took a seat and gazed out onto the balcony. Dad, Eondiposum so bored. Earlier, I rejected him. He claimed to be worn out and ready to go to bed. Eondiposum at a loss for what to do. Nu Yet took a seat by herself by the table. Nang looked out the balcony while clasping her hands. The Tande pass how this guys. Dad is going to take a firm stance. What a pervert, Mr. Hung said, his mouth shut. He glanced at Nu Yet again. He was raising his eyebrows. Now, Dad, what are you going to do? This man is incredibly obstinate. Nu Yet wants you to demonstrate to Van your helplessness. All right, let Dad handle it. Dad also desires a very young child. Mr. Hung shut his jaw. To hide the confusion, he shoved the child outside. Eondiposum grateful. Dad, go to bed early. You enter this room. Grinning, Nu Yet got to his feet. Oh, good night, I Tandapos late. Proceed to the room. Nu Yet felt ashamed. It dawned on Nang that she was in pajamas. Luckily, there wasn't much light on the balcony. Mr. Hung was quite concerned when his bank received a check-in from the head office a while later. Nung, his daughter, hurt herself once more. Thankfully, though, everything went smoothly. Nung and her spouse, who was the one who initially informed him of her divorce, came to express their gratitude the following day. The key takeaway from this exchange is that Mr. Hung identified Nhungan Dapa's greatest vulnerability. He recently purchased a vehicle from his own bank. He must have thought, based on his expression today, that he had apprehended Mr. Hung after the two husbands requested permission to depart. Additionally, it was when Mr. Hung burst out laughing in the office. Additionally, Mr. Nhungan Dapa's daily interactions with his daughter-in-law increased during this period. Since Nu Yet became his daughter-in-law, he has always thought that she is not only a lovely woman, but also very intelligent, kind, and decisive. No one could match Nang. If Nu Yet wasn't opposed the ideal daughter-in-law. In his day-to-day activities, Mr. Hung discussed a variety of topics within the company or shared his family business. Nu Yet was also relieved to have someone with whom to chat. Nu Yet gradually began to feel more attuned to Mr. Hung. Mr. Hung never had to do anything at home, but he felt that he was more focused on cooking than anything else when he arrived here with his kids until the third week. In addition to having a lovely daughter-in-law by his side, he was struggling everywhere he went. This squid is really tasty, according to the husband Andapal's psychology. On the second floor of the apartment, Mr. Hung and Nu Yet stood beneath the elevator. His dad had just bought some food at the market. That fresh squid, indeed. Eondipos prepares steamed squid. My brother and father can still enjoy a couple of the remaining beer cans. How in the world Is that guy able to drink it, Mr. Hung got up to get his bag after working all day. Even though he was wearing a black windbreaker, it was insufficient to conceal his belly. After a few days, Mr. Hung returned home to check on his wife and get some clothes. He had just opened the gate and heard Mrs. Lone laughing. He entered and saw Mrs. Kwai, Mrs. Lone and Apa's sister. As it happened, Mrs. Lone asked Mrs. Kwai to stay with her, so that she wouldn't Apis be as sad. Mr. Hung was surprised, but more comfortable. Mr. Hung entered Mrs. Kwai and Apa's home, was passing by. "Why are you here?" Mrs. Lone reprimanded Mr. Hung. Have an Post asked Tonyet. "Why is this woman acting this way? How can I?" asked the bastard. His father, Mr. Hung, asked. To find each other, he came to the house. Mrs. Lone just spat, he said. He was taken aback. What and Apis the matter? Mr. Hung lost his mind. The little girl must be to blame, Mrs. Lone said. Or, to communicate with one another, the husband and wife locked the door. Who was that person? I don't underpost know. But everyone in this neighborhood knows, Mrs. Kwai said. This elderly gentleman enjoys playing with kids. Mrs. Lone continued to address Mr. Hung directly. Mr. Hung remained silent. His face was red with anger. Hurry, I'm leaving. Mr. Hung walked out in a rage. He gave Nung a call. After a few minutes, Mr. Hung arrived at the business. Lunchtime had arrived. Everybody was at home. Mr. Hung entered the space. He took a seat on the office sofa. He gave Nung a call. I called you, Nung. Luckily, I called as I was preparing to leave for home. Nung entered quickly. She took a seat. Nung was seated directly beside Mr. Hung and Apis' voice. Nung made a partial guess as well. You came to my house, but you gave me less than 2 stars. Yes, I called incessantly, but I was unable to obtain the number. I need to sign some documents immediately. I visited the dentist, the Tandapos all. The dentist considered it. Mrs. Lone and Apis' jealousy of the young girl was just revealed to Mr. Hung. How did Mrs. Lone come to know the face of Nung, who is not envious when they see Mrs. Lone like that? I Tandapos, just a girl sometimes. Additionally, Mrs. Lone has held the story Mr. Hung added to her several times. The Ondipos V been constantly holding my phone. No calls have come to my attention. He felt so foolish. His voice remained the same. For you, I called this number. The Tandapos what I said. Nung simply provided the translation. Give Mr. Hung the phone. Where yes, this is the number I put in the office. I use a different number each time I go out. Call this number for me the next time. The Tandapos what I said. Mr. Hung simply dialed and picked it up on his own. Nung replied, Indeed, I assumed that you were afraid of something. Nung grinned. His phone was in his pocket. He went on, I want to go home. If there Randapos nothing. My spouse is anticipating my arrival. I was about to get up. Mr. Hung then withdrew his hand. He sat down slowly. Mr. Hung drew Nung back on purpose. Nung also sat down gently as he moved. He remained silent. Mr. Hung was at his breaking point. He resembled a tiger caught in a reverie. He was now set free in the woods. Nung was equally enthusiastic, of course. 3 hours later, it occurred spontaneously once more. Mr. Hung then changed and left for his house. Not on that particular day. There was a loud cry in the living room when Mr. Hung got home. He could feel the crying in that cry, despite the tiny sound. He quickly dropped his shoes and hurried inside the house. He noticed his daughter-in-law, Nuyet, sitting on the pillow on the sofa, sobbing like a rebellious child. Of course, he sprinted aside, took a seat, and said, Yes, what and Apis wrong? Sweetheart brother, Mr. Van. He passed by me, dear. Nuyet said softly after opening his eyes and giving his father-in-law a hug. Eondiposan very unhappy. Mr. Hung asked, What? Despite having a hazy understanding of the issue, dear, what and Apis wrong? Clearly tell me. Nuyet continued to rest his head on his shoulder and began to narrate the tale. As it happened, Van had discovered a golden flower to flaunt last night after going out for a drink with his co-workers. They had just gotten into a fight, and Yondiposum not sure how Nu Yet found out. Van had left the house just now. Mr. Hung gave Nu Yet a closer embrace. Nu Yet was correct. Although friendships are short-lived, they are timely. You will get what you desire, as long as you utilize it. Mr. Hung felt a sense of relief. Nu Yet was ecstatic, moved. The argument between the father-in-law and daughter-in-law finally broke out in silence on the sofa chair. The four eyes exchanged glances, as though they had been anticipating this moment for a very long time. The Tande passed how they came to each other. There was no need to explain anything until the two of them contemplated and made their way to the place of blissful happiness. Nu Yet and Mr. Hung got up and straightened their clothes when it was quiet. And then Mr. Hung said softly, "Yondiposum going to take a break. Everything will work out." After silently thanking Mr. Hung, Nu Yet retired to his own room. Despite the complexity of the situation, Mr. Hung felt a strange sense of satisfaction as he looked at him. However, he believed that he had been able to ease Ngaitandapa's suffering and provide her with some solace. Mr. Hung went back to the guest room and took a seat on the couch. He was thinking about the recent events with his eyes closed at around 0. Naturally, he experienced a peculiar sense of loneliness despite having everything he desired and a strong sense of passion. But he still felt as though something was lacking. Nu Yet was lying on the bed in his bedroom, unable to fall asleep, while he was lost in thought. Though she had found solace in her father-in-law Wonderpa's arms, she reflected on her life as it was, her husband, and the unmet expectations. She continued to experience an inexpressible sadness. In order for her and the rest of the family to truly be happy, Nu Yet had to take action to alter the circumstances. Even though loneliness was still there in his heart, Mr. Hung woke up early the following day and no longer felt heavy or exhausted. His determination to keep trying to better himself captivated him. When he looked in the mirror, he saw that the hidden thoughts that had been in his heart for a long time were also clearly reflected. In addition to the grey hair and the spots where his eyes were, Mr. Hung took a seat at the breakfast table and gazed at the chair that Nu Yet still occupied each morning. In a family that was being regrouped, the light air and the morning bell made him feel different, as if he were trying to understand each other. Van left Nu Yet alone at home and left for work early. Mr. Hung made the decision to speak the truth to Mrs. Lone, the woman he had spent all of his time and emotions on, and whom he had left behind for many years. The time they spent together at night to better understand one another had been a long time since they had genuine conversations, and he was aware that although those relationships might endure for a while, they couldn't endure in the shell of hesitation and silence indefinitely. Mrs. Lone remained at home, but in a different mood. She did not complain or speak up as quickly as she usually does today. She gave Mr. Hung a quick glance when he entered, remained silent, and then sat down in front of him, there carefully louring the vegetable plate she was holding. Her eyes glowed with fatigue and a hint of tenderness. "We must speak." Sincere and no longer a little tough as before, Mr. Hung began. "I acknowledge that I have an underpost always been a good husband, and that I have an underpost received enough attention over the years. But underpost we come to the realization that I can underpost live forever with unattainable goals, and that I can no longer stand apart from my own life." After a period of silence, Mrs. Lone said, "We have experienced many waves and have truly loved each other, but time has changed many things, including me and you. At least I know you want to fix it." Mr. Hung gazed into Mrs. Lonendapa's eyes, which held both understanding and memories of challenging years. "After all this time together, I tend to pass time for us to move on and start a happy family once more. Even though there have been ups and downs, we still have a chance, so we will try not to make the same mistakes twice." Mrs. Lonendapa's eyes were teary, but she smiled tenderly as she breathed deeply. "We will work together from the start, not for anyone else, but for ourselves. If you still want to, Mr. Hung experienced a deeper emotion after hearing those words, even though they may have lost out on a lot of opportunities. Love and forgiveness remain the cornerstones for re-establishing relationships. They are prepared to travel together, even though the path ahead will not be simple. In terms of passion, she's still lost in her own thoughts. For example, she feels lighter after speaking with Mr. Hung yesterday. Love is a thing that will change, but tolerance and understanding will never go away. Assist her and her spouse in discovering a shared path in their love, careers, and families. She made a commitment to herself that she would not allow the little things to ruin the immense joy she had created. A family is not only a place to return to, but also a place to overcome challenges together, create beautiful moments, and, despite changes, love and sincerity will help them get through everything. Mr. Hung saw his family smiling together the following morning on her warm, yet simple morning. At last, Mr. Hung reflected, without the family, we wouldn't best have anyone to live with us. This concludes our story, dear friends. Remember to inform us by leaving a comment. Goodbye, and Yondipos will see you in the upcoming episode.